In the Brazilian city of Belem do Pará, preparations are underway for the 30th Conference of the Parties on Climate Change, the COP30, organized by the United Nations. In the United States, people demonstrate against President Donald Trump's policies in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday in the one-year anniversary of his presidency re-election. And in Palestine, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the UNRWA, reports the worst crisis of forced displacement since 1967 in the West Bank. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belem de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. And in Brazil, preparations are underway for the 30th Conference of the Parties on Climate Change, that is the COP30, organized by the United Nations. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva authorized the participation of the armed forces in guaranteeing public control for the meeting and summit of leaders following the decision to hold the summit in Belem, the capital of the Amazonian state of Pará, which responds to the government's intention to highlight the crucial role of the Amazon as the lungs of the planet in the global climate agenda. For this event, which will take place on November 10th, the city expects to welcome more than 170 delegations and at least 57 heads of state, highlighting the strategic importance of this event. Precisely in this context, the head of state and international leaders have already begun to arrive at Belem International Airport to participate in the Leaders Summit that will take place within the framework of COP30. Among the first to arrive were the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, the former President of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, the President of Ethiopia, Taye Atske Selassie, and a high-level delegation from Nigeria as well, underscoring the broad geopolitical representation of this event. The Leaders Summit officially opens on November 6th and 7th at the Hangar Exhibition and Convention Center in Amazon City. COP30 is being held amid growing international calls for bolder, more urgent actions to address the global warming crisis. And precisely speaking of the climate crisis, in Vietnam, authorities reported at least 40 deaths after a week of record flooding and rainfall due to the advance of Typhoon Kalmagi. The central region of Vietnam was hit by torrential rains that caused rivers to overflow and flooded several historic sites, and even a national rainfall record was set with 1.7 meters of rain falling in just 24 hours. In this regard, mass evacuations of coastal areas initiated, and in the city of Cung Non, officials went door to door to warn residents to evacuate immediately. Kalmagi will be the 13th storm to hit Vietnam in 2025, and experts fear that the typhoon could exacerbate the flooding that hit the island last week and caused the death of 47 people. Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. declared a state of emergency on Thursday after Typhoon Kalmagi left at least 114 people dead and 127 missing in the country. Most of the victims died from drowning in flash floods, many of them in the central province of Cebu, which was heavily affected before the tropical cyclone left the archipelago on Wednesday towards the South China Sea. Typhoon affected almost 2 million people, including about 450,000 villagers who were evacuated to emergency shelters. The area around the city of Cebu received 183 millimeters of rain in the 24 hours prior to Kalmagi's impact, well above its monthly average of 131 millimeters. And Venezuela and China are negotiating a trade agreement that includes tariff exemptions for 400 products. In an interview on the Venezuelan television channel from Expo Shanghai 2025, the Minister of Foreign Trade, Koromoto Godoy, explained that the measure seeks to strengthen trade ties between Venezuela and China. They presented a very important proposed agreement that covers around 400 tariff codes that would enjoy zero tariffs, and China would request in return another number of similar exempted tariffs. Godoy explained that negotiations began in March after the visit of the Venezuelan Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, to Beijing. At the same time, she noted that they hope to implement this agreement by the first quarter of 2026. Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. We continue with more information. In the United States, Washington, D.C. was the scene of a demonstration on Wednesday marking 1 year since U.S. President Donald Trump's election to a second term in office and celebrating the defeat of Republicans in several local elections in the past days. From the U.S. Capitol, hundreds of people gathered by the Refuse Fascism platform, demanding an end to what they described as the president's fascist regime, chanting slogans such as "Trump must go." The day also coincided with the anniversary of Trump's victory in November 5th, 2024, the presidential election, a day that, according to those in attendance, was the result of all his lies. At the protest, criticism of anti-migrant policies was the focus, emphasizing the harassment by the Trump administration and the raids carried out by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office. Meanwhile, also in the United States, the death toll rises to 12 after the UPS, the United Parcel Service cargo plane crashed near Louisville Airport in the state of Kentucky on Tuesday. The mayor of Louisville, Craig Greenberg, announced on social media that the death toll had risen to 12. For his part, the governor, Andy Beshear, predicted that the death toll would rise, saying authorities were looking for a handful of other people, but do not expect to find anyone else alive. Meanwhile, the chief of Okolona Fire District in Louisville said that it will take quite some time to remove and search under the rubble. He also said that rescue efforts are continuing and the causes of the accident are currently being investigated.
We're planning to be there for at least a week or longer. We'll be out there as long as the NTSB needs us to be there. We are prepared for this. So I don't know how many victims we're actually looking for. That's one of the issues. And the debris zone is so large. So trying to get people back there. And with the debris zone, some of that debris is going to have to be moved and searched underneath. So it will take us.
And we go now to Mexico, as President Claudia Sheinbaum filed a complaint against the man who harassed her this Tuesday outside the National Palace. The Mexican president reported that legal action was filed in Mexico City while lamenting and detailing the accident. After the harassment, the Mexican leader realized that she was not the only victim, of course, and that the accused had repeated this action against other women on the same street. He was arrested and is currently in protective custody. Sheinbaum emphasized that this incident is not solely related to her as the highest authority in the country, but to all Mexican women, to guarantee respect for women in every sense. And we go now to Argentina in other news following the scandal over a documentary by Judge Julieta McIntosh that forced the previous trial to be declared null and void. The court ruled on Wednesday that the new trial for the death of Diego Armando Maradona will begin on March 17th of next year. The magistrates alleged collaboration in the filming of an unauthorized documentary provisionally titled Divine Justice, which was being made in parallel and secretly. The three judges were removed and the trial was declared null and void. That trial, in which a testimony of almost 100 witnesses were recorded, was judging the health professionals charged with the death of the football player. McIntosh had his license as a lawyer revoked and is now facing trial for unethical conduct. Also in Argentina news, and one of the leading electronic manufacturers in Tierra del Fuego laid off 150 workers this Wednesday in its plant in Ushuaia, which had been visited in September by the far-right President Javier Milei. The workers were laid off without prior notice, while some local media outlets alert that the measure is part of a context of opening up imports, removing tax benefits from the industrial promotion regime that benefited the province, and cutting national funds as well. In the recent election campaign, President Milei appeared alongside dozens of the company's workers and spoke of supporting the productive sector. However, the company violated the labor stability agreement that governs the province and fired the workers. In Venezuela, the 20th anniversary of the No to the FTAA movement and the struggle of the peoples to confront the threat of neoliberalism in the continent is commemorated. From the Rómulo Gallegos Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies in Caracas, the documentary Fight Against the FTAA, The Challenges of the Peoples was screened. Venezuela remembers that thanks to the efforts of Commander Hugo Chavez, the initiative to free itself from imperial hegemony and the neoliberal measures of the free trade area of the Americas was born. The documentary shows how Chavez's strategy and his union with social movements, leaders, and activists in America helped bury the FTAA with the emergence of the ALBA and maintain the resistance of the people.
Nosotros que estamos congregados aquí.
We are gathered here today to commemorate a tremendous victory that our people achieved 20 years ago. In this moment of our nation's history,
En este momento de nuestra patria, congregarnos significa
gathering together is extremely important, as it brings the victories of that event to light, providing guidance and understanding that it was not just something that happened, but that it continues and is an ongoing process.
algo que pasó, sino que sigue y la lucha continúa y es un proceso en pleno desarrollo.
Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow the page and activate notifications to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. In France, the authorities carried out a new eviction operation on around 300 migrants from the camps that have been set up in Gare Stalingrad and Bab-Chapelle in central Paris. The operation, carried out by police officers, used 3 buses to transfer the refugees to improvised shelters located in distant cities such as Bourg, Besançon, and Toulouse. It was also learned that some residents left the camps before the evacuation to avoid being transferred out of Paris, while others arrived in the area hoping to find a new shelter. It is estimated that about 150 people are still without shelter due to the strict admission criteria for shelters, which leads to displacement to unknown areas. And in Palestine, the occupied West Bank is experiencing the worst crisis of forced displacement since 1967. This linked to Israel's military raids and Zionist settler violence. According to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the UNRWA, more than 42,000 Palestinians had been forced to leave their homes since October of 2023. Furthermore, the UNRWA denounced the alarming increase in attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinian olive farmers in the West Bank, which, according to the Colonization and Wall Resistance Commission of the Palestinian Authority, 2,350 attacks were recorded in October of 2025 alone, describing it as a continuous cycle of terror. Israeli military forces carried out 1,584 attacks, including physical assaults, demolitions, and the uprooting of olive trees, while Zionist settlers perpetrated at least 766 attacks. And the Palestinian Ministry of Education reopened the historic Al-Qalmiya school located east of Gaza City. Authorities reported that the former educational center opened its doors to welcome more than 300 Gazan students in a two-shift system, morning and afternoon. The initiative aims to meet the needs of dozens of children eager to recover their lives in the coastal enclave after years of continuous siege by Israel. On the other hand, parents demanded more places to enroll their children so that they could revive social and cultural development despite the destruction caused by the Israeli siege.
Before the war, my children attended a private school. Now, due to the circumstances, the poor conditions of the roads, the lack of transportation, and the need to repair and renovate the schools, we have been forced to enroll them in educational initiatives in the area, where we flew after the destruction of our homes. These initiatives have limited places. Today I came to enroll them, but I couldn't because they were full and the space was too small to accommodate more students. For 3 years, we have suffered because our children have been deprived of education, but we are trying to compensate them for what they have lost. Most schools in the Gaza Strip were destroyed during the occupation. This particular school is located in eastern Gaza. Neighbors in the area suggested we use it, so we began preparing the space with the local community, who clean and equip the school to start classes. There are 300 students in this school. We are working with the resources available and hope to be able to accommodate more students. Parents want their children to return to school after an interruption of over 2 years due to the war. As you know, the Palestinian people have one of the highest literacy rates in the world. I couldn't return to my old school, so I came here. All our schools were destroyed. Before the war, we used to go to school, learn, play, and have fun. I want to continue my studies until the end.
Now, in other news, on Wednesday, the Turkish government rejected the claims made in the 2025 report published by the European Commission, particularly those referring to the judiciary fundamental rights and the country's internal political situation. In a statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ankara stressed that the report's assessment are incompatible with the efforts to establish a positive agenda between Turkey and the European Union, and that they are written in contradiction to the long-term interests of both parties. In this context, the ministry urged the European Union to activate existing cooperation mechanisms and include Turkey in the bloc's defense and security programs as part of a more equitable and pragmatic relationship. Russia's permanent first deputy representative to the United Nations, Dmitry Polyansky, also expressed his concern about the violent escalation by the United States against Caribbean countries. Let's take a closer look at this. Through his profile on the social media X, Polyansky stated that they were deeply concerned about the dangerous escalation in the Caribbean. The United States continues its military deployment along the coast of Venezuela and its illegal attacks against alleged drug trafficking vessels. He continued by saying, in an attempt to reduce tensions, Russia, during its presidency of the UN Security Council in October, proposed a draft presidential statement to address this concerning situation. The moderation and dialogue to resolve disagreements and a reaffirmation of the zone of peace in Latin America and an emphasis on cooperation to jointly combat drug trafficking and transnational organized crime. He also stated that unfortunately only one member of the council rejected this initiative, showing no intentions of de-escalating the situation or seeking diplomatic solutions. He concluded by pointing out that Russia rejects belligerence and military threats. Those who reject diplomacy as the only way to resolve controversial issues between countries will be fully responsible for the consequences of this reckless behavior. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belem de los Santos. Thank you for watching.